Hello and welcome to Celebrating Cinema, a podcast for the love of cinema. I'm your host, Lara Gommans, and I'm here with our producer, Elliot Bloom.
Hello, hello.
Elliot, we're about to get lost in the back room.
Yes.
Imagine you fall through the floor of your office and land in another one. Same fluorescent lights, same carpet, no exits, no people. The Backrooms was a horror image born on a 4chan thread in 2019, and it has now evolved into 20-year-old Kane Parsons' A24 horror feature debut. You've seen the pictures or the shorts, I'm sure. It's yellow walls of a 90s office repeating and repeating. It's a really refreshing movie that takes a meme and turns it into a story of a culture stuck in its own feedback loop. You've seen the pictures or the shorts, I'm sure. It's the yellow walls of a 90s office, and it's just like repeating and repeating forever and ever. Backrooms is a really refreshing movie that takes a meme and turns it into a story of a culture stuck in its own feedback loop. It's nostalgic memories we don't even have. It's being trapped between spaces that no longer connect to anywhere. It's watching the same yellow walls recede in every direction. The question the internet has been asking since 2019 is, what the hell is in the Backrooms? Today on Celebrating Cinema, we go in. And we come back with an answer that has very little to do with a yellow-walled maze and quite a lot to do with the rest of your life. Before we start, you can support us by leaving a review. It helps other cinema lovers find us. And don't forget to send us your most controversial film hot take or confession for our segment Hot Takes. You can send us a voice note over Instagram or through email at celebratingcinema@lab111.nl, and then we'll read one out at the end of every episode. And there's a lot of fun stuff happening at Lab 111 this week, including a straight-to-video screening of Massacre in Dinosaur Valley on May 29th, and a wine masterclass from Wine Bar Shanann on May 30th. But Elliot, how are you? What have you been watching lately?
I'm very excited to speak about Backrooms. But what have I been watching recently? I finally got to watch A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey by Coconada.
Wow. You're the first one. You're the only one. Congratulations.
I'm not surprised. It felt very much like this was a film Coconada was contractually obliged to make. For those that don't know, it's starring Colin Farrell and Margot Robbie. And it's basically about two people in their late 30s looking for love. And together they go on this kind of mystical fantasy-like adventure together, but it's exploring all their memories and previous relationships, and it's kind of saying like, oh, what if we were able to be honest about our true selves from the start and explore our own deep memories, which in a way sounds promising, but...
It looks corny as hell.
Yes, it's very corny, and that's kind of where it falls very flat on, but... I mean, Coconada didn't write the script, so immediately then I'm not so interested because for those that don't know, he also made After Yang and Columbus, but he kind of came to prominence as a video essayist. He was very sort of known for making these experimental video essays. So he has a really nice and expressive style, and I think that's why they got him to make this. But I didn't mind watching it because if he then goes on to make a banger in his next one, then I'm happy.
Sometimes it's one of those projects where it's like, okay, rent was due. That's fine. Like, look the other way.
Yeah.
I have not been at all moved to watch this movie.
I do not blame you. And I don't blame anybody that doesn't want to watch it.
It just kind of goes to show how important like cinematography and styling is. Because I look at it and it's this very like, oh, the styling is really gross and the hairstyling is really gross. And I'm like, wow. That really makes you realize that that's all a really big part of what makes you want to watch a movie is the aesthetics of it as well.
Yeah, I would be really interested to know how much of a fight and struggle there was between the studio in terms of how it looks and stuff and what Coconada was envisioning, because it does feel very flat in the colors and tone and sort of no imagination to anything that they were putting on in terms of this, because I think he was trying to go for something like Umbrellas de Chambord.
But it looks like a Hallmark movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What have you been watching?
I had a really nice experience at the cinema that I want to talk about because I went to see the Billie Eilish concert movie that was directed by James Cameron, shot in 3D. I am a 37-year-old woman who can name maybe 5 Billie Eilish songs. I'm not like a fan. I see her as an artist and I think she's incredible. Like her and her brother, to me, is like competence porn. You know, they're so good and they're so well raised and they're articulate and they're like, I'm so rooting for them. I think they're amazing. And I wanted to go see this because I love seeing a concert movie, because as someone who gets very easily like overwhelmed by things, going to real concerts is sometimes a bit of a struggle for me.
Yeah.
So being at a concert movie is amazing because I get to sit in my seat, which is row 5 on the aisle. You can go to the bathroom whenever you want and you know exactly where it is and it's not going to be a struggle. You can have your little snackies and you can, and it's like way more of a controlled environment. And I really love it. And then to experience something like this in 3D, which is, I think, the first time a concert movie has been done in 3D, amazing.
Yeah. Does it hold up then?
It does. And it kind of does this thing where it's like 2 or 3 songs, then you get a little bit of like a docu style, kind of the making of the movie in between the movie, which is super interesting. And you can really tell that James Cameron is very passionate about doing this, as he is about everything he does, including those dumb blue aliens. But yeah, I just thought it was super delightful. There's been a lot of discussion online about how people behave in these screenings, because not at my screening, because it was like a Sunday morning screening, but people tend to like get up and dance, and Billie Eilish has come out and said, it's like, yeah, that's what I want it to be. Like, it's a concert movie.
Yeah.
You get to sing and jump around and do the thing. And I'm a stickler for cinema etiquette, but I do think it's different at these types of movies. And I think it's nice. It's a way for people to see the concert that either like have sensory issues that prevent them from seeing concerts, or, let's be real, don't have the money to spend 400 euros on seeing their favorite artist. I think it's incredible. I think we should be doing more of it. I think it's a shame that these movies always only run for like 4 days. I thought it was very fun.
Of course, you should have a certain kind of cinema etiquette, but I think we should also be more confident in breaking that sometimes, or a lot more often, based on the films, because cinema is also supposed to be reactionary or felt, so you can't just feel it all the time sitting down. Yeah,
and I think there's a difference between like dancing at a concert film or like talking out loud through a concert film, which I had when I went to see The Last Waltz at and it was just me and like 7 boomers in the room. And then they were just talking out loud, and I was like, okay, I know that Dutch people love nothing more than to talk through a concert. It was like, can we just not do that right here? Please. But yeah, no, the 3D technology is really cool. They have these like really tiny handheld 3D cameras that she just kind of picks up and moves along. So she also has like a director credit on it, because the whole show she kind of designed herself. I thought it was cool. I think she's awesome. And I would love to see more concert films like this. Backrooms is an A24 horror, as we mentioned, directed by first-time director Kane Parsons. It was written by Will Sudik, who has previously written for things like Homeland and Westworld. It stars Chiwetel Ejiofor and Renate Reinsve. The premise is a therapist kind of ventures into this otherworldly dimension in search of her missing patient, played by Chiwetel. Kane Parsons, at 20 years old, has become A24's youngest feature director. He kind of began this thing as a YouTube series back in 2022 that has now hit 190 million views and more. Here is a clip.
Look, I know how this sounds, but you gotta understand, it's massive in there.
I'm not saying I don't believe you.
Okay, I'm gonna come back here with proof.
All right, you feel me?
Yeah. Follow my lead.
Clark, what is this?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I've been here every night since I found the place, and I still barely scratched the surface. All right, just take it slow.
Elliot, we went to separate screenings. We have not spoken to each other, but I can tell from like us like setting up here at the studio, I think we're both really excited about this movie, right?
Yeah, I was a bit nervous to know whether you would like it or not, because
really?
You've been so mysterious about it.
You texted me, it's like, what did you think? It's like, I'm obviously not going to tell you.
But yeah, I loved it. I think I originally watched his first YouTube short video, Backrooms, and it is very impressive because it's all done through special effects or After Effects and Blender.
Like Blender, yeah.
And he's able to create this real sense of eeriness in this video, because you're kind of searching through the space, not knowing what's in there, but also feeling that you are being watched or followed in some way. And I think I was very curious to know how they were going to be able to develop that into
a feature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the film is brilliant. It's not genius or a masterpiece, but what should be mentioned also is that Kane Parsons has been really well helped by all the people around him. I think A24 have done a brilliant job of giving him like really competent people to give him something that he can maintain his own core idea, but into something that actually really has a lot to say that I really want to get into.
Because to follow up on that, it was produced by James Wan, who is, you know, maybe the biggest icon of horror in like our generation. He did Saw, The Conjuring, Insidious, like all of those like sleepover horror movies that you know. And then Osgood Perkins was also a very hands-on producer, and he's the guy that you might know from Longlegs and other movies that I am not personally a huge fan of, but I do really like Osgood Perkins' sense for aesthetic and scaries. What Backrooms does really well is it just like has this thing of like, it so resembles your nightmares from when you were a kid, because it's all these spaces and rooms that would have made a really big impression on you when you were a kid. It's like maybe your dad's office back to me in the 90s, not to Kane Parsons because he's like 5 years old. Like your dad's office in the 90s, it's swimming pools, it's Christmas trees, it's, you know, these like liminal spaces that are so kind of like eerie and scary. And we can't explain why they're scary, but it's just this like, did you ever have those dreams as a kid when suddenly things were like really big or really small, or it just kind of like, I don't know. I just think this whole thing, I remember seeing it for the first time, not on 4chan because, you know, I'm not one of those people, but I remember seeing the clips for the first time and being like, wow, this like hits a little thing in my brain that feels so much like just like little remnants of my childhood. How did they do this? And like, it's so cool to see that someone managed to take that essence of like the kind of like childhood scaries that aren't actually monsters and put them in a thing that then ends up being quite a decent feature film. I realize I just said liminal spaces, but maybe it's good to kind of explain what that is for people who aren't as steeped in the lore of this.
Yeah, from what I've read and understood, it's this idea of these big public spaces where it should be filled with people. So like airports, offices, shopping malls, but then they're not. And so then it creates this really eeriness sense of being very lonely and isolated in a space and feeling that something is off or something is missing. And that's why it's so cool in the sense, because it then becomes this between space of it's not quite what it should be and it's not, and it can't be something else. And then you get stuck in it. And then there's also a bit of video game lore in all of this, because it's kind of this space, if you play video games, that you can break through the code of the game, let's say, just by chance of it breaking, and you end up in a space that you can't get out of. So you get stuck in this very empty space and nothing exists. And how the sort of like it became a very popular thread on Reddit and all these chat rooms, etc. And it's this idea of what would it feel like to be a physical person stuck in such a space? How scary would that
there's
be?
a term for that, right? What's it called again? It's like
no clipping.
No clipping. Yeah.
So like, no clipping. So you're kind of clipped out of the game that you're supposed to be in, or the reality that you're in. And so then you're forced to exist in it. And I think what the film does really well with the narrative is it really justifies its position of why this space exists, how it exists. And then you start to follow the main character who owns a furniture store, a very sort of poorly run furniture store, someone whose own ambitions as an architect hasn't worked out.
His wife has left him, or like his wife kicked him out of the house. Like he's not in a great spot in his life.
And so then he discovers this space. And what I love about the film and what it does is it's not necessarily some kind of hallucination or something. It really makes you believe that this is a real space.
A natural occurrence, kind of. What I like, you just said that about the narrative, and I'm like, what I like is that it kind of explains why it exists, but it doesn't all the way. So it doesn't do that annoying Christopher Nolan thing where it's like, so how Inception works is actually that it folds or whatever, and I don't fucking care. But it just kind of like, this is a thing that is there. He also has these two employees, and he kind of goes, come see this thing. You know, I don't know what I found, but I found this thing. And it doesn't do this thing like, so here's what I found about the Backrooms. And this is how that works. And this is like, so it kind of leaves the mystery that it needs to have, because it would suck if they would completely like well, it's just the code and it's the fifth dimension. And that's why you could send an SOS message to your daughter 30 years ago. Like, fuck off. Yeah, I just think Backrooms does that bit really well, where it leaves the mystery, but does enough to like justify its existence.
Yeah, and you stay more with Renate Reinsve, and who's the psychiatrist in all of this, and she discovers it for herself, and therefore she has to believe what she sees because she can no longer assume that her patient is crazy or hallucinating.
Yeah, because just to set that up, like Chiwetel Ejiofor is her patient. He comes in, and first you kind of see them talking about his like marriage and his ambitions and all of those things. Then he finds the Backrooms without giving too many things away, but he goes to her, is like, girl, listen, I found this place and it's crazy. And she just goes, yeah, okay, sure, let's stay calm, you know? Yeah. And then he kind of goes missing, and then she's like, I'll just go see him at a store. And then she also ends up in these damn back rooms.
Yeah, and then to describe them, they're like these very yellow drab, like office space that are empty. And obviously things start to appear in it that you start to go crazy because it's somehow related to the real world of like maybe shoes or clothes that end up here or chairs or whatever. Yeah. But I was researching, and actually this space exists. It was a photo taken of a furniture store in America in the 90s that has somehow ended up here, which I thought was really cool. But I was also reading that there was also a strange phenomenon maybe like 10 years ago where people were having the same reoccurring dream of being lost in a empty shopping mall. And so,
dream scenario.
Yeah. And so then that's kind of also how it contributes to this story here in Backrooms. I'm not a huge fan of horror films.
Yeah, I know.
I don't like being scared, but it's also more the blood and the gore. And I think this is why I really vibe with this, because it's more that anticipation or tension of not knowing what it is and wanting to, you're curious enough to find out more, and whatever violence is in there, it's minimal or limited in a way that it gives you enough fear, but not enough to like overpower or take over from the main concept of the film.
Yeah, I think this is a really good horror movie for people to watch that always go, I'm not into horror. And it's like, well, trust me, this is really cool. I think the scaries in Backrooms are the things that you don't know. And I think the added effect is that a lot of it is filmed through kind of like handheld camcorder, kind of Blair Witch style. So a lot of the times when they enter a new space in these back rooms, you're just like really squinting. It's like, is that a face? Is that, oh, that's just a pile of stuff. Is that and that just like really adds to this like nightmarish kind of feeling. I love anything that's like found footage or pretends to be found footage. I think, Blair Witch was so scary. Paranormal Activity was so scary. And I think this kind of fits into that world. But then what it does really well is it combines this found footage with, just really skilled actors performing the story that it kind of needs, but it could almost go without. Just a quick plug for a new Celebrating Cinema event series at Lab 111. Sign of the Times, run by our very own Hugo and media scholar, Dan Hassler-Forrest. The premise is 21st century cinema and a live conversation. So anything from art house and pulp and the weird stuff that somehow became canon, and the films we're still fighting about. Screened with curated clips, an extended introduction, discussion afterwards, and of course, room for questions from you guys. Every month, Hugo and Dan pick a subject and record a Celebrating Cinema episode about it, and then continue the discussion live in the room with all of you after seeing the movie. First up, June 17th, the original The Fast and the Furious in a brand new 4K restoration. It's Dan's pick. Come and argue with us in person. Link for the tickets is in the show notes.
I think maybe now is a good time to discuss a bit, what do you think the Backrooms are, or what do you think they represent, or what's in there?
Okay, should we sound kind of the spoiler alarm?
Yeah.
What it is, I mean, I like that it keeps it vague, but it does have this kind of repeating narrative from their therapy session, or I think it's from like Renate Reinsve as a therapist has these like book on tape things. It's all set in the 90s, so book on tape was a thing, where she kind of repeats this thing about we as humans tend to like end up in the same loops, and we tend to make the same decisions, expecting different results. That repeats like 2 or 3 times. So I think that's trying to say something about how humans tend to do this thing of like, right, I get stuck in a pattern.
Yes.
My wife left me. I'm still having the same conversation over and over and over and over again. I'm at a furniture store. I want to be an architect, and still doing the same pattern over and over again. I think a large part of it is about getting stuck in your head. What I also think is there's a large part where it says something bigger about society. You could argue it says something about history. I think that's a bit of a bigger thing of like, we're repeating now a little bit the patterns that we were doing in 1930, whatever. But also AI, you know, I think it's just a thing that in its core feels like it says a lot about the time, and you're like, damn, that really fucking rings true. But what is it?
Yeah.
Can't really put my finger on it.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
It's a brilliant metaphor because, like you said, it works on both the individual and the society. And so the film's set in the 90s. And what's also brilliant is like there's still this eerie sense that it could also be set right now in the present moment based on kind of how they're dressed.
Because the 90s are back, guys. Yeah. Don't forget it.
And also with Renate Reinsve's character, she's also this kind of self-help psychiatrist. You see her watching her own videos or TV adverts of how to help yourself.
Yeah.
And yet she's kind of like...
She's really numb.
Yeah, she's really numb to everything, and kind of just everything washes over her. So
she has her own trauma to deal with.
I think both what Kane Parsons talks about in interviews and what the film is suggesting is how like these spaces from the 70s and 80s of how they were designed, we thought they would perhaps be used for something else or be sort of the start of this golden age of capitalism, especially, that they have now become so like vacant and empty that they're kind of also pulling away at our soul of who we are because they don't give us meaning anymore. Both the jobs that we look for, the jobs that we do, don't fulfill us in the way that we had envisioned back then. And therefore we get stuck in this maze of, Kane Parsons says this himself in an interview, we're no longer to create any kind of new culture in some way. And so we're just very much stuck in this moment of, like you said, repeating everything in a way that then leads him to question or look at what are the psychological consequences of that for ourselves as individuals.
Yeah.
And what's a nice touch about the film is you don't really see the characters with other people. It's very few scenes that they interact with each other, and it's often very much isolated to themselves, which I think is a nice touch of how we feel right now as well.
Something I keep thinking about with the current state of our internet is, you know, whenever I want to look something up, you end up in a fucking AI generated article and you're like, God, and everything is just like sourcing from a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. And that's kind of what this feels like.
Yes.
Well, there's no way out of this, again, back into the real world.
To add on that, there's a term online called creepypasta, I think. And, and that is basically what you said, that you can no longer find the original of where this source comes from because there's so many copies.
Yeah.
But in the third act, Clark then starts to inhabit this space in the back rooms. He doesn't want to leave it. He kind of finds it comfortable and reassuring. And also what happens is the people that get stuck there, they can't feel anything, so they're numb to any kind of pain, any kind of thing to their physical body. You can even eat them, which sounds pretty gross, but I then liked how it expands the idea of how not only is it a space that we get stuck in, but then we get comfortable in it. And then we find it more like kind of peaceful or numbing because it allows us to escape reality in some way. And I thought that was a really nice touch of how, again, they're able to continue expanding on the idea.
Yeah, it's like, this is fine. I know the way. It's so good here, actually. You know, that feeling that we all have sometimes.
In the trailer, they say, like, it's kind of beautiful, right, this space? But again, how it continues to expand and develop this idea also is that you then learn by the end of the film, again, spoilers, that it's to do with some kind of research lab and that they'd opened up some kind of portal that had created this space and they didn't know what it was, but they wanted to continue investigating and finding out. And I think it really touches on perhaps the state we are now in with AI and this idea of knowing that it's very dangerous, knowing that we should perhaps stop and figure out what we're going to do about it, put some safety guards around it, this kind of stuff. But this human fascination or this human need to know or to conquer it means that we will pursue it even if it costs us our lives or humanity.
Yeah. I really like practical effects, as we all know. And the back rooms were all built. It's like 30,000 square feet of actual back rooms that they built. The entities that are in there are very much practical effecty, which I so enjoyed. Like, man, I had such a good time with just like watching how they created all these things, and any of the entities are just like, they're always kind of obstructed from view. You never really get in their face in a big way. So it allows your brain to also make them scarier, but they're certainly there and they're practical in the space. And it's so much scarier than some weightless, dumb CGI creature bouncing around after them. I thought that was incredibly well done. I think Kane Parsons is an incredible talent. He is 20 years old. He was born in, sit down, 2005. I was at the club. And he knows exactly what he wants this thing to look like, what it shouldn't look like. And I'm just really excited to see what he does next, because to have that sensibility at this age and to be so articulate about it, I mean, that's incredible. That's awesome. And, you know, I think he's going to face the second album kind of thing, you know, where he's been working on Backrooms for many years since he was, what, like 15 or something? He started doing he started experimenting in Minecraft. He was like, I just started building worlds in Minecraft, and then I downloaded Blender, and then I started doing this, and then I kind of, just, you know, as I was like building my MySpace page when I was his age. But, you know.
Funny anecdote is that I once did a French exchange at the age of 14, and the pairing was completely off. Like, we were total opposites. But this guy had shown me on his Minecraft account that he had built and recreated the entire city of Paris in Minecraft. And at the time, I'm thinking,
is he okay? So do you know if he's still...
We lost touch, unsurprisingly. But I'm now thinking he could be another Kane Parsons.
Damn,
so I don't think you should underestimate these people.
I love that the things that come out of Minecraft are so much more inspiring than the Minecraft movie.
Yeah. I mean, that would have been awesome to see Kane Parsons maybe make a Minecraft movie. Maybe it's also good to talk about how now, like, his pathway from YouTube to A24, the risks that A24 are perhaps taking in supporting a filmmaker like this. But also, it reminded me a lot of our conversation that we were having around Amadeus and sort of the Genius label. And I was thinking it's obviously way too early to put something like that on him because you need to see what he does next. But I think I was surprised of how articulate and aware he was of his own ideas and what he was trying to communicate. And I think that shouldn't be underestimated. But
well, I think we see this happen more and more. And I think this is kind of a new way for studios to source this incredible new talent. You know, people who have done YouTube before, like Obsession by Curry Barker is another example. Is like someone who's like been around on YouTube, has also built their own fan base. Earlier this year, we also had Iron Lung by this guy, Markiplier, and he kind of came with this built-in audience. He made this indie movie, and people came out so hard for this movie. And I think studios are starting to pick up on, this is actually a great way to just get really young talent into our studios because they have this proof of concept.
Actually, on our last episode, Kiriko and I were talking about, because she made her short film and how funding works and how in America you really have no kind of funding, especially for filmmakers that are starting out. And this feels like a very safe way for both production companies, but also filmmakers to try it out, to build an audience of some kind that then gives you the credibility to be able to make something like this. Because I think now more production companies are going to look to YouTube and also people on social media because it's a way safer bet than someone who's just come out of film school or something like this.
Yeah, and I mean, you see it all across social media because just now at Cannes, we had the premiere of Jordan Firstman's movie Club Kid. Jordan Firstman is also a guy that during COVID was just making funny videos on YouTube. And now he's a director who like seemingly like really well received. I think it was sold to A24 for like 12 million or 10 million or something. So I do think TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, apparently 4chan are the new places to find these talents. And it is in a way a bit of a shame because if you don't have that, I think it is even harder to get your foot in the door. I was listening to this interview with James Wan with Kane Parsons that you sent me. James Wan says this thing that I hear a lot of directors say now in master classes and things like that. It's like, just go and make your movie. You have an iPhone now. We didn't have that back in the day. And I think there's definitely truth to that.
Yes.
But it is like, you could be the most incredible filmmaker. If you don't know how to use social media and if you're not in that space, good luck.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it really undermines. They try and trivialize or make it sound very easy of how it is to just pop off and like you can hit record and you're going to make something great and then everybody's going to find it. And a lot of it is luck.
I do think it's good advice. I do think, you know, if you want to be a filmmaker, just start in your room and just start with your friends.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's great to know that someone like Kane Parsons can start, like you said, in his room and that there is a blueprint for it of where you don't have to spend so much money. Or
you don't even have to have friends.
Yeah. You can create them special effects. I think this film is going to do very well. And I wouldn't be surprised if it makes 100 million at the box office. I would be bold enough to say something like that. But do you think A24 should then turn this into some kind of franchise?
No, leave it. Leave it where it is. Because I think, no, you know, you can't turn the Backrooms into its own Backrooms. This is great. This is what it is. And I was also saying that, like, this movie, I had such a good time. If it was just the narrative, I don't know if that would have, you know, but it's just the fact that it looks so awesome. I had a really good time. It constantly kind of keeps you on this edge of, you know, that just works really well. I don't think there's more of a story to tell here.
I agree. I wonder if A24 sort of see this as this moment of to like really transform into a competitor to Universal and stuff, because as far as I'm aware, I don't think they have a real franchise yet of their own.
No.
And I think this would seem like a logical place for them to try. But I would rather they not. It really ruins the original of how this came to birth. And
yeah, you could see how it would be tempting because it is also kind of an open ending and, you know, there's definitely more to say, but yeah, I think anything that you examine too much becomes boring. We can't wait to hear what you guys think of the Backrooms. Do let us know. We will be screening it at Lab 111, of course, so you can find the tickets for that in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening. If you like this one, subscribe, leave a review, and send us your film hot take for the next episode. We can't wait to hear your weird opinions. Stay connected with us at Celebrating Cinema and Lab by following at Lab111 on Instagram and Letterboxd. This was a Lab 111 production, edited and produced by Elliot Bloom, and co-produced by myself, Laura Gommans. Music comes from Hugo Emertsal, and the artwork is by Studio FFF.